Hi, it's Jim Du. I'm a wealth expert, and today I want to talk to you about why networking is so important for entrepreneurs. In my entrepreneurial journey, other than marrying my wife, who's been my business partner for 24 years, and my wife for 31 years, probably the most important thing I've done is networking. So many resources, so many opportunities have come my way because of networking. And yet, most entrepreneurs either don't try to network, don't know how to network, or don't see the importance of networking. So I'm going to give you some tips and some tricks to help you be a better networker and to understand the value, why this is valuable and why you should spend time doing it. What are some tips for making a memorable first impression when networking? Well, the first thing, I'm going to just back up and say you want to show up in the right way. So you want to make sure that you're not dressed sloppy. You don't want to show up and look like you don't have your act together. So you know what? There's a reason why people say don't judge a book by its cover. It's because people do it all the time, and they're going to judge you by the way you look. So show up dressed smart, dressed clean, dressed well, and then show up with a certain energy or attitude. You know, if you show up to a networking event and you're kind of down in the dumps and you're quiet and kept to yourself, no one's going to want to talk to you. So bring energy, get excited, show up so people find you as memorable. My wife, when my wife walks in a room, she lights the room up. Why? Because she walks in with a big smile, a lot of energy, and she looks around, makes eye contact, and people say, gosh, I was so drawn to your wife. Yeah, because of how she shows up. So show up that way when you show up at a networking event. And then the other thing is, it's not about you. So you want to focus on the other people. The way you're going to be remembered is get them to talk about themselves. And don't ask the standard questions everybody else asks. So it's okay to ask, you know, how'd you find the place or where are you from? And those kind of things are fine for a little bit of small talk, but get to something that matters more. So some questions that you might ask besides, what do you do? Everyone asks that, what do you do? But instead of that, ask something different. So my friend Sean Stevenson, who is 3 foot tall in a wheelchair, he passed away in 2019, but was a dear friend of mine. He had osteopenia imperfecta, so he was in a wheelchair his whole life, but one of the greatest personalities and one of the greatest networkers I ever met. He would ask questions like this: what's lighting you up lately? What are you excited about? That's a better question than what do you do? What in your life do you appreciate and are you grateful for right now? What are you looking forward to? What's coming up in your life that you're really looking forward to? To get into some of the deeper conversations so you can find out about their family, about where they're from, about their history, about what they're looking forward to, what their hobbies are. Those are great conversations. And when you do that and you let them tell you about themselves, you're gonna have a better networking experience and you're gonna get a better result. People are gonna remember you. Show up with energy, dress well, be outgoing, and ask them, what's lighting you up? Or what are you looking forward to? Or what are you grateful for lately? Something to get them talking about stuff other than the normal conversations. What are some ways you can connect with influencers or people in your industry that would be powerful to add to your network? Well, it used to be years ago that there were all these barriers to getting to know or meeting anyone who is an influencer, someone who's in your industry. A lot of those are removed. You can instant message people, you can get on an online course they teach or a class, you can go to an event they're at. There's all kinds of ways you can get access to influencers and people in your industry. Think about what's in it for them. So a good friend of mine, Joe Polish, he wrote a book called What's in It for Them. And he's a master networker, and I would highly recommend you pick up the book. But he talks about ways that you need to network. And one thing is, what's in it for them? What can you do for them? So I'll give you an example, and Joe's talked about this. He's very good friends with Richard Branson, the billionaire. And a lot of people say, well, Joe, how did you get to be friends with Richard Branson? And I know, because I know when it happened. He found out a way to buy a ticket at an event to sit at the table with Richard Branson. Now, that was a big check, and you might not be there yet. But then when he was sitting next to Richard Branson, as a lot of other people were, he started throwing ideas at Richard. Hey, Richard, I was thinking about what you're involved in, and what about this idea or this strategy? And Richard started finding a great interest in that. He said, oh, that's interesting that you'd bring that up, because it was about Richard and what he wanted to accomplish. And then he said, hey, what's the most important thing to you right now, Richard? And Richard said, my foundation. So then Joe became the #1 donor to Richard's foundation. And if you do that, guess what Richard Branson does? He calls you. And that's how Joe got to be friends with Richard Branson. So again, that's just one example. You don't have to necessarily write a big check to get close to someone, but what can you do to get their attention to help them? So rather than having a conversation with an influencer or someone that you go to an event to meet or something else for your own benefit, think about what's most important to them. And if you know that, then you can come up with ideas or ways that you can help them. And if it's not money, it could be volunteer work. So if they're involved in a certain charity, you say, hey, I hear you are really into this charity. How can I volunteer or help with that charity? What could I do to move that mission forward? And you're gonna find that person is gonna be much more engaged in that conversation. So again, framing it up, thinking about the ways you can get proximity to these different people, and sometimes it's just paying to play, but other times it's just showing up at the right places, showing interest, and getting connected that way. But then even more importantly is, what can you do for that person? And don't say what I think you're thinking. Don't say, yeah, but Jim, that person's so successful and they have all these things going on. There's nothing I can do to help them. You're not being creative enough, because every person at any level has something they care about that you could help with. So think about what's in it for them. As an entrepreneur, are there certain events or places you should go or groups you should be a part of to expand your network? And the answer is yes. Find out what groups resonate with you. And there's groups that are meetups that are either free or inexpensive, all the way up to groups that you can spend $35 or $50 or $100,000 a year to be a part of. But what you want to do is find out whether it's geographically or the types of groups that you relate to. You want to be a part of those groups. A lot of the business ideas that we have implemented in our companies over the years have come from networking with other entrepreneurs. You're gonna learn from other business owners how to run a better business, but you're not gonna learn if you're just hanging out with your friends from high school or college, or you're just hanging out with people in the workplace. You wanna hang out, if you wanna be a great entrepreneur, hang out with great entrepreneurs. And again, there's a lot of ways to do that, but the more you do that, the more it's going to expand your mind. It's going to help you to see different ideas and different opportunities. But don't just sit at home thinking that this is magically going to come to you. Because I remember years ago, I heard Jim Rohn speak live, and he was actually Tony Robbins' mentor. He was a great self-help person. And Jim Rohn said, there's only two ways you change your life: the books you read and the people you meet. And I still believe that's true today, even though a lot of people aren't reading books and they're watching YouTube videos. But the people you meet is a game changer, and you're only gonna meet those people if you're around them. So join groups, be willing to spend money, learn from others, and network and offer value so that they wanna give you value back. How can you expand your professional network through social media, through different avenues online? The first thing is always think about adding value first. So by being on any of the social networking platforms, you want to make sure that you're putting out content and information that people find valuable and that would draw the right people to you. Because one thing I see sometimes is people want everyone to like them. And guess what? There's no way to have everyone like you. So you want to put stuff out that attracts the right people and repels the wrong people. But by sharing information, knowledge, wisdom, things you need that you know that others might want to know, that can add credibility and that can attract people to you. Also, being supportive. So when other people post a question, if you have an answer, you can research the answer for them, or you can support them in some way. That can create better networking online. But don't get on and give information hoping to make a sale, hoping to get them to come to you. I hate it when I'm on social media and I respond to someone's thing, and the next thing I do, I get this big sales pitch. Oh, hey Jim, I can help you with all this stuff. And really, I just delete, because to me, it's like, you haven't earned the right to pitch me stuff. Work with me, make me believe that you care, and then I'm open to hearing about your ideas and whatever you might be selling. So lead with content, lead with solutions, and lead with support. And if you do those things, you'll gradually start building a network. And don't be afraid to instant message someone or to reach out to someone to connect with you. But if you do that, always try to offer up something of value, not to get a foot in the door to sell them something, but just because you can see their situation and what they're trying to achieve and what they care about, and you have some solutions or some ideas that might help them improve their situation or meet their goal. How do you nurture these professional relationships over time to make sure that they remain close, to make sure they are adding value? And really, it takes time, but it doesn't take that much time. It used to be when you wanted to keep relationships, professional relationships going, you would see people by having lunch, by having breakfast, by those types of things, and that took a ton of time. And you had to continually do that to create the relationship. But today, you don't need to do that, but you do need to stay in touch. So you need a system so that you keep these people top of mind. And it can just be a quick note, hey, haven't talked to you in a couple weeks, how are things going? Especially if you can make it about them. Hey, I remember your kid was playing soccer in that championship game. How did that turn out? Those are really powerful. People like to engage in those kinds of situations. If you're in their town, if you know where they live, hey, I happen to be in your town, do you want to grab lunch? That's a great way to connect and make the relationship even better, because in person is always better than digital. But digital can work too, because often it's super easy to send a quick message, say hello, ask about something going on in their family or their hobbies or their life, to keep that connected. Also giving content. So again, if you know that person has a particular business or a particular need, and you see an article or some information, you can say, hey, I just saw this and I thought about you. But you need a system so that you're doing that regularly over time. And I'll just give you a personal example. When my wife and I have our anniversary, so we just had our 31st wedding anniversary, how many people reach out directly to us on that? Very few, almost nobody. Like the people in our wedding party, the men and the women that were in our wedding party 31 years ago, virtually none of them reach out, because they're busy and they forget. And when my mom was alive, she would tell everyone, she would go around and tell everyone, oh, it's Jim and Mimi's anniversary, so that we would get these messages. But it wouldn't take much to remember that. But I tell you what, it would matter if someone sent us a direct message and said, hey, I know it's your anniversary, or I think your anniversary is about this time. What are you doing for fun? Are you going on a trip? What's going on there? That would connect us more to whomever we're staying connected with. So remember, hey, you have to have a system. You have to think about adding value or reaching out in a way that's meaningful to them. So it's better to say, how did your kids' soccer championship go, than it is to say, how have you been? That's a better question. So knowing those people and something about them that matters can help drive that deep relationship that will really help you with your network in the future. I'm going to give you one of many stories in my life where networking made a huge impact on our business. So one of the groups that my wife Mimi and I are involved in is Genius Network. It's a marketing group, it's an entrepreneur group. In that group, we were in breakouts one day at that event. And in our breakout, they were saying, go around your little circle and tell people your greatest challenge. And at the time, our greatest challenge was recruiting and hiring for our company. We were growing super fast and we couldn't hire and retain the employees at a rate that would keep up with our growth. So in our group, the one person said, gosh, we had the same problem in our company. We have a director of operations that solved our problem, solved the entire recruiting problem. It was just like yours. And she said, you know what? I'd be willing to get our director of operations on a call with you for an hour to kind of tell you how he did it. So I grabbed my wife Mimi and made the connection, and my wife Mimi got on the phone with her director of operations for an hour. And after the hour, you know what she said? She said, that's not going to help us. Because what he did, we can't do. This guy's a genius. He created this whole funnel. He created this way of recruiting and hiring that is so complex and so well defined, there's no way we could do it. So I thought, seems like that was a waste. Until about a year and a few months later, that director of operations had decided to leave his company. And he remembered the conversation with Mimi. He really liked what we were doing. He liked my wife, and he reached out. He said, hey, everything's above board. My current employer knows that I'm leaving. I'm looking for a new opportunity. And I thought you might be open to a conversation. So we had conversations, we looked at what he did, and we hired him as our director of operations. And he's been one of the keys to our ability to scale, to create systems. He solved our recruiting problem, our hiring problem in 90 days. In 90 days, he fixed a problem we couldn't fix over a matter of years. And now he's a key ingredient to the growth of our company, to the explosive growth, and to the value of what our company is going to be. We couldn't do it without this person. And we only met this person because I was at a networking event, sitting at a table, sharing the problem that we had, and that person said, hey, you might want to talk to this person. And by the way, initially it seemed like it didn't help us at all, but that connection turned out to be a huge part for the future of our company. So don't underestimate marketing. And remember, it's not necessarily the person you meet, but it might be the person that that person knows and the person that that person knows. So it could be kind of the Kevin Bacon 6 degrees of separation. Everyone in that room probably knows people, and the more you do for them and the more you can help them, the more they're going to want to help you. And you could have an outcome like what we had, which is a tremendous change in our business just because we were in that room at that time. Don't underestimate networking. Just because we're in a digital environment with all the social media, networking is really important, both online and in person. And having a plan for how you're going to do that and how you're going to be successful is critical to your growth and success in the future. So think about networking as valuable time spent. Think of networking of what you can do for them, because once you do for them, they're going to want to reciprocate and do for you. But don't underestimate networking. Thanks for watching. I hope you got a lot out of this video, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.